All right, thank you for staying with us. And we get into that all-important conversation about sustainability, especially when it comes to the issues we're about to contend with. 54% of our dams are flood-prone. That doesn't make for good reading at all. Now, Ghana is expected to experience more acute climate hazards, such as flooding, which we're facing already. So it's going to be more extreme, as well as more frequent and intense drought. Climate-related extreme events have the potential to put the years of progress towards growth and development at risk. But the question is, how can we build a more sustainable and resilient society through climate change adaptation? The weather patterns are changing. We have to change along if we're going to catch up. Joining us for that all-important discussion, we have Professor Patrick Ferkoyan, CEO, Global Center on Adaptation. A very good morning to you, Prof.
Good morning indeed.
And I'm looking at this new roadmap for resilient infrastructure in a climate that is as challenging as we face it. But my question is, why the study in the first place? What motivated this?
Well, the motivation behind this is the realization that Ghana is in the eye of the storm. I mean, it's recovering from COVID, food prices are up, energy prices are up, inflation is up because of the Ukraine crisis. And on top of that, there is the climate catastrophe, which Ghana or Africa...
A climate catastrophe?
Which Ghana or Africa as a whole did not cause. Less than 4% of GHG emissions are from Africa. And Africa as a continent and Ghana as a consequence is mostly impacted. There's a profound moral injustice in the system. And our motivation behind this new study is, what can we do? So we have looked at the infrastructure in Ghana, roads, water systems, energy provision, and where are the climate risks today and where are the climate risks tomorrow? And actually, it is quite a shocking story which we have seen.
And we'll get into the script of that shocking story, but just to reiterate what you said, it is indeed the case that the Western world in particular has industrialized and caused a lot of, pollution. Now, we have the situation where even less pollution or controlling your pollution earns you some points if you look at the global infrastructure. We are now trying to industrialize, but we're even being told that, no, we can't even do a lot more pollution because that would only add to the problem. But the temperate zones are not seeing or facing what we are facing, and that is where the danger lies, isn't it?
What?
Because we are in a more tropical area, if you like it. Our zone is more heated, and we are facing the brunt of the situation. But in terms of some of the dynamics you expose in this study, you talk about the fact that we're going to be seeing acute climate conditions. We're going to be facing famine or drought and all of that. What is the basis for this conclusion?
Well, so the basis for the conclusion is in essence that Ghana is getting wetter, it's getting drier, and it's getting hotter at the same time. And
wetter, hotter, drier at the same time?
At the same time in different parts of the country. And the realization is this is in a world of warmed up with 1.1 degrees Celsius compared to pre-industrial times. We're heading into a 1.5 degree world globally by 2030. We're even expected to go into a 3 to 4 degree warmer world. But that means that given where Ghana lies, that intensification of the water cycle you referred to, Benjamin, is even more intense here in Ghana. So again, this profound injustice in the system is that the brunt of the climate impacts are being felt here, the vulnerability is here, the capability to adapt is low, and then obviously the fiscal space to respond is also limited given, as I just exposed, the economic crisis and the fallout from COVID. So now the Western world has said, we are willing to contribute financially. In fact, President Akufo-Addo went to Glasgow last November to the climate summit, and he said, we Ghana, we Africa, we are tired of waiting. You Western world have promised already in 2015.
And the promises have been many, not just in 2015.
That $100 billion from the north to the south would flow on an annual basis. How much is flowing now today, Benjamin? $80 billion. So we're already $20 billion short. How much is flowing to Africa as such? $6 billion. So there is, again, a need for increased financial, let's say, partnership with the Western world. And partly because of your president's, let's say, strong voice in Glasgow last year, the Western world, the good news is the Western world has agreed again in Glasgow last November to double their commitment. But now the new reality with Ukraine tells us, well, actually, most of our development aid in the Western world is now going to Ukraine, is not coming to Africa. So here, there needs to be a course correction, there needs to be a reset globally.
A realignment.
A realignment with sort of the prospect and the growth prosperity of the African continent.
Mm. And how exactly do we go about that? Because when you speak of the fact that even when you look at the 80 billion out of the 100 billion that was projected, with a shortfall of 20 billion, and the fact that just about 10% or less is coming to one of the worst affected places on the planet, which is Africa, where do we go from here? What do we really do? Because now you're saying again that these funds are being diverted, well, some of it, to Ukraine. How do we remedy that?
So I think the starting proposition is it's smart economics. Investing in climate adaptation, adapting to a changing climate is good economics. Why? Because every dollar, every pound, every euro invested in making infrastructure more resilient has a return of £4, dollars, euros on that same dollar. So the realization that investing in climate, in fact, is good economics. It creates jobs, it creates shared prosperity. That realization, this should be front and center of not necessarily ministers of environment, but ministers of finance and central bankers. It's a financial issue which needs to be put forward much stronger to the global community.
When you look at Africa, when you look at Ghana, even with what has trickled in, when you look at what we've done with it, what picture does it paint? Are we doing enough?
Is Ghana doing enough? No. We've seen the floods last weekend, and again, that's under the current climate scenario. Is the ambition of Ghana to do more? Is the ambition of the government to do more? Yes. I mean, when your president indicated we are now going to implement the roadmap, which we're going to discuss, I suspect, in a second, but we only have limited fiscal space to invest. So again, this partnership which needs to be created. Domestic resources need to be put on the table, which is 20% of the total footing the bill, but that 80% needs to come from somewhere else. And where does it need to come from? International capital markets, development cooperation, African Development Bank, World Bank. That whole financial engineering now needs to take place. And I think Ghana is very well placed as a stable democracy, as a sort of recovering economy, to put climate front and center of the economic recovery from COVID.
All right, so let's get into the roadmap, and that's quite a bulky document you have in front of you, but it encapsulates quite a lot in terms of the research, the studies you've conducted. Let's break it down. You touch on areas such as transport, for example, and you speak of the fact that, okay, so you have roads, road networks and the rest. If there's a landslide, for example, all of these climatic changes could result in losses of about, what, $3.9 billion for Ghana alone?
Precisely. So,
okay, so give us the breakdown. What went into the study, the different dynamics?
So just the basics. We looked into the existing infrastructure in Ghana. Transportation, as you referenced, energy and water supply. And we looked at where are the risks? Where are the opportunities to invest? So we have identified 35 investment propositions in Ghana. How much does it cost to really invest this roadmap? Because as you said, Benjamin, this is a bulky document, and the document is trivial if it's not getting implemented. But what's the price tag of implementation? $1.3 billion. That's
$1.3 billion.
That's not trivial. But what's the price tag of not implementing the roadmap, of having the roads flooded, of having, let's say, energy not being provided, of no access to healthcare systems? It's a factor of 10. $13 billion. So Ghana has a choice to make. It either delays and pays, paying meaning paying the price of the $13 billion, which will come to Ghana anyway, or now be upfront and say, okay, where do I get that $1.3 billion to make the existing infrastructure more resilient? The good thing is there is the plan, there is this investment proposition. There is the political commitment now to drive. Now the next step is mobilizing, financing at scale, not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but today to implement this roadmap.
Because these problems are here with us, here and now.
Well, as you could see here in Accra over the last few, floods are not new, but floods are intensifying. Droughts are not new, but droughts are intensifying. Landslides are not new, but they're intensifying. So, and that's again, just the sheer realization that we're now living in a 1.1 warmer world, but already by 2030, that's 8 years from now, we're in a 1.5 warmer world. Even if we meet all the global promises in reducing our carbon footprint, we will be in our 1.5 warmer world. And I mean, every fraction of a degree warmer has massive implications.
It has implication on farming, on farm produce, on even the quality of produce you will get. It has an impact on the quality of our lives even. I mean, even in terms of, for those of us who have melanin, it would be easier dealing with it. For those who don't, such a warmer world will have impact on things like cancer development and all of that, skin cancer. So it's quite a bit to look at, right?
It's quite a bit to look at, but I want to look at it from the bright side. And the bright side is this. Investing, that's my basic message, which I would like to share with you. Investing in climate. Investing in climate action is smart economics.
Let's look at that, investing in all of this, because so 1.3 billion, but you know about our own economic constraints here in Africa, here in Ghana, and especially on the back of the global pandemic, COVID-19, and the Russo-Ukrainian war. What would you say? Should African countries, should the likes of Ghana sit and wait for the Western world to feed it with the needed funds, or should we take it upon ourselves and whichever way we're going to go about this, internally get what we need to ramp up this entire approach? And I say it from the standpoint of the West has failed us, so to speak, in terms of giving us the requisite funds. So what do we do? What do you propose?
My proposition is very simple. Africa is tired of waiting. Africa can't afford to wait. But Africa cannot afford to pay the whole bill.
That is.
Let's look at Africa as a whole, sub-Saharan Africa. How much are the financial needs for adapting to this changing climate today on an annual basis? $33 billion. How much is flowing from the West into Africa to pay that $33 billion? $6 billion. So there's a massive shortage. So what African leaders...
That's about a shortage of about $27 billion.
Indeed, on an annual basis. So what have African leaders done in the last few months? They came together under the sort of the helm of the African Union, and they said, you know what? We have a plan. We are going to build the largest adaptation plan for the continent. Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program. What will it do? It will make farming more drought tolerant, particularly in the Horn of Africa. It will build infrastructure more resilient, such as here in Ghana. It will get young people to work in green sectors, and it will get financing to flow. So how will that work then, that financing to flow? Well, Benjamin, you know, the Western world mobilized trillions, not billions, not millions, trillions of dollars overnight to address the COVID crisis. And where was that trillions of dollars invested? In the Western world. So money in the system is not the issue. It's access.
There is the money.
It's access to these resources. Well, there is something like the Green Climate Fund. How much money is there? Roughly $10 billion. Well, the realization is that African institutions, Ghanaian institutions, do not have access to that $10 billion. And why is that? Because the system is really complicated to apply to these resources. So what is needed here in Ghana, for example, we need the institutions, the financial institutions, to be fit for purpose, to access those global funds, to come with proposals, with propositions to extract these resources and to get it invested here in Ghana. Again, good for jobs, good for the economy, and indeed, as you indicated, it's good for our health.
So before I get into what the GCA has been doing so far in the midst of all of this, I just want to find out, so that statistic, I find it to be shocking. 54% of our dams in Ghana are flood prone. What exactly are the dynamics to that? Where do these dams span across the entirety of the country? And what does this basically mean?
So it is across the entirety of the country, but also, let's say, here in Accra, the Wager Dam is exposed to flooding already today, will intensify over time. I mean, I've visited the site, I've seen sort of the impact of flooding on sort of the Accra region as a whole. It has massive implications for lives and livelihoods, businesses being closed, people cannot access schools, hospitals. Again, society as a whole is greatly impacted by these floods. But at the same time, similarly, we have, let's not forget the droughts in the north where labor and agriculture productivity is going down. Well, the productivity needs to go up. The more people, we've seen the Ukraine crisis, what it does to food prices. Africa needs to be becoming self-sustainable. So it doesn't need to come for a handout to the Western world. What it needs is a robust partnership with the Western world. And that's precisely where we come in as a global center on adaptation indeed.
So beyond that, what have you been doing in this respect, in dealing with some of these issues as the GCA?
So here in Ghana, if you reference, we have developed this roadmap, this basically investment plan for Ghana, for infrastructure. We have assessed where are the climate risks of today on existing infrastructure and where are these climate risks tomorrow. But again, a roadmap, a business plan, an investment plan needs financing. So we're now discussing this with the largest financiers here on the continent, the World Bank, the African Development Bank, financial institutions, to see, okay, can we create a package? Can we mobilize the resources? Government resources, international finance, private finance, to basically financially engineer the implementation of this roadmap. So that's basically, for me, the bottom line. Next time, a year from now, Benjamin, I hope I can come back to your program and say, you know what, we had the roadmap, we launched it with your government, and the implementation now is 1, 2, 3, 4. That's sort of the litmus test of how robust this plan is.
And the AAAP, the AAAP,
yes.
What does it mean to Africa's adaptation?
It's extraordinarily important. The AAAP is what? Africa Adaptation Acceleration Program, the largest program, $25 billion over 5 years, half of which is already mobilized. So there is $12.5 billion for Africa already on the table. But again, that's important. So Africa is moving, but it's not moving at the scale and speed enough to address the problems of today and let alone of the problems of tomorrow. So there is now a massive resource mobilization effort on the way. So together with President Akufo-Addo, I'm convening a World Leaders Summit the beginning of September, specifically on Africa, on climate, and basically on the reset of the economy, where African leaders will be joined by leaders from the global north. And it's at that moment, quite frankly, it's a moment of truth. They have committed, they have promised, now it's time for them to deliver.
Are you hoping that this will actually shape things for the better when it comes to this delivery that you speak of? And you can add your concluding comments. Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily an optimist, I'm not necessarily a pessimist, I'm determined. There is no other way for Africa than to adapt. The bottom line is this, it is adapt or die.
Adapt or die.
Because the livelihood...
That has been the story of humanity, hasn't it? You either adapt or you get...
Precisely.
You fade out.
And this is the time we have to do it now. Our time is up. The good thing is we have the plan. We have part of the financial commitments from Ghana itself. We have the leadership. Let's now move the roadmap into action.
Well, interestingly, our time for this discussion is up too. But just as a parting shot, you've been in Senegal and Kenya recently. Can you tell us about what you've seen there, what the picture is there as far as this discussion that we're having is concerned?
The picture is different and it is similar. I used the word climate catastrophe in the beginning of our conversation, and I don't use that lightly. There is an emergency here on the continent, and the emergency is being felt in Kenya with the droughts, but it is also being felt in Senegal with the floods. President Macky Sall, current chairman of the African Union, was very, very clear in the conversation I had with him. He said already today, the climate impacts on my economy, how much is it? 10% of GDP loss every single year. So he also was very clear, this needs to change. And I think there is this dark cloud in the global community of Ukraine. But I mean, picture that, what's happening on the continent. Again, Africa did not cause this problem. Now it needs to move to reset the economy on the growth trajectory as comparable to the pre-pandemic growth trajectory as it was.
Well, it has been invigorating, refreshing, and insightful as well, this conversation. And we can only pray that the global powers, especially the West, will contribute to its quota, and that Africa will also take itself up by its bootstraps and move forward as far as this is concerned. Thank you, Prof. And that has been Professor Patrick Verkooyen, CEO of the Global Center on Adaptation, sharing his thoughts with us on the AM show. When we return after the break, it will be time for you to have your say. Citizens microphone coming your way. If you've shared your thoughts on social media with the hashtag AM show, we shall give you the opportunity to have your messages read. We'll also activate the phone lines. All of that after the break. Stay.